Skipping out on community may not actually just make you lonely. It could kill you. If that scares you more than a flashback to 2020 with a 21-day quarantine and 3 small kids at home, well, we should talk more about that. Well, hello friends, I'm Mary Beth and welcome to At What Cost. Now, research shows us that despite all the ways we have to connect with one another, there is an epidemic worse than any virus out there. And of course, it's loneliness. Now, it's fun to joke around about deciding whether you'd like to stay in or go out, but there actually are some serious implications here. In this video, we are going to discover how hospitality can actually cure us of loneliness, why you may be better at hospitality than you think, and I'll share my best strategies to make hospitality easier than ever. We're also going to rearrange my dining room because I have gotten so good at this formula, we are now running out of space at our dining room table. Now, none of us are immune to loneliness. Chances are pretty good you have likely encountered this sneaky little booger called loneliness. Feeling lonely for long periods of time can lead to physical illness, cognitive decline, and even early death. But there is an easy way to remedy this problem. Now, with 3 children, a husband, a full-time job, a dog, and a busy church life, I would expect that loneliness would never darken my doorstep, but you'd be wrong. I have experienced many seasons of loneliness, even despite being well connected to social groups and the outside world. There's another reason we can fall ill to this epidemic of loneliness. Have you ever been to a friend's house, had a wonderful evening, and gotten back to your house and thought, how in the world could I ever pull that off? When my husband and I moved into our very first home as newlyweds, we lived in what most would consider a pretty average size home in 2007. We had 3 bedrooms, a formal-ish dining room, and a good-sized kitchen. One of the selling features of our home was a rather large pergola over the back patio with built-in benches. We imagined hosting friends and families for holidays and dinner parties, but it just never seemed to happen. Sure, we hit the major holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, but ultimately, this kind of grand vision of these garden parties that I had envisioned just never seemed to come to fruition. Something happened. We made friends. I know, it doesn't seem like that would be the problem, but it was, because we made friends with people who were living very differently than we were at the time as a young married couple. They had much larger homes, a lot more disposable income, and a decorating style that seemed to make my kind of homemade hand-me-down decor seem more like it needed to be in a donation pile. It took me years to realize that other people's circumstances didn't have much to do with my ability to extend hospitality. So if having resources and having friends didn't solve the problem of loneliness, what would? Enter science. Okay, so microscopes and studying serotonin levels and all of the sciencey things didn't actually resolve the issue of loneliness, but it did give us some very valuable feedback to help us understand what can stop loneliness in its tracks. This information is key to understanding an easier way to extend hospitality. The way they present these findings sounds a little bit like a bad joke. A geriatrist, a neuroscientist, a journalist, and a psychiatrist walk into I'm kidding, they don't walk into a bar. But they did put together a study that gives us some amazing results about the cure for loneliness. And it sounds a good bit like hospitality. So what are these key 3 elements? Well, the first is the extent to which we are involved with others. Next is the quality of our relationships. And the third factor is our perception of how much support is available to us if we should ever need it. All of this really made me question how I did hospitality in the past, which was a wee bit frustrating because none of these factors said anything about dinner parties and fine china, charcuterie boards, anything that I could find on Pinterest. I certainly was not searching perceptions of available support groups on Pinterest. So how do we figure out how to extend hospitality? Now, as a Christian, you can make the argument that you can extend hospitality anywhere, from letting someone go in front of you in line, maybe you buy the person behind you their coffee, holding a door for someone, stopping to help a stranger in need. While these are all good and valuable ways to extend hospitality, it's probably not going to do much to completely extinguish our loneliness, or at least keep it at bay. This is actually the first step in this system to extending hospitality. You can't extend hospitality if there's no one for you to give it to. Now, there's a pretty good chance that you have some friends, family members, co-workers, people you know from church. Maybe you're part of a local book club. There must be ways that you can connect with people. Now, if you don't have any of those things that I've just listed, well, it's time to get involved in something. You're going to have to find a local book club, a Bible study, and brace yourselves, introverts. You may actually have to talk with somebody at church on Sunday when you go. I know, but this is your health we're talking about here. There are always needs within every church community. We need somebody in the nursery. We need people to attend Bible studies. We need people to teach Bible studies. Maybe it's setting up chairs for events, maybe catering events. Maybe you have some skills that your church can use to better shape the community that you have there. And you'll meet some people along the way. So be willing to connect with other people. Now, that's just fine if we're going to extend hospitality outside of our home, and certainly to broaden our experience and opportunity for community. But I know what you're going to say. What about when I want to invite them over to my home? Perhaps I may want to serve them a meal, and my home is in no way or shape to be able to actually do that. Well, I've got an easy answer for you, friend. Just put some lipstick on that pig and get going. It's not exactly what you need to do, but it does come to a point where we have to be willing to accept that we live in our homes. There's a good chance that when you go to someone else's home, you overlook a lot of the mess. There are conditions in other people's homes that you probably never even think about, like dusty baseboards or dusty blinds. People are far less likely to notice the little things that we often feel self-conscious about. But now seriously, if your house is really overrun with stuff, you may have to put in some good elbow grease and get some decluttering done. I have got lots of videos on how you can declutter easily, efficiently. Now, a good dose of decluttering is not actually part of the formula, but it will make your formula a little more successful if you do some decluttering. Your house doesn't have to be perfectly decluttered. Mine certainly was not when we began hosting our home group, but actually having chairs for someone to sit in at a table that is available for them to use will go quite a long way. So you've got some friends, and maybe you've done a little decluttering and you've got some space and you're ready to extend some hospitality. Here we go. This is the big reveal. We're about to discuss the formula. Now remember, in the beginning of this video, we talked about the 3 cures for loneliness, and they go hand in hand with hospitality. The first is to prioritize relationships. That's really what hospitality is about. Now, you may be able to make a beautiful charcuterie board with salami that looks like roses and all of the right cheeses. I just kind of wing it, and it usually turns out okay, but I certainly do not have talent for that. I want to prioritize the way people feel when they come to my home. It's nice to have big, fancy, elaborate meals, but more often than not, people want to share a meal with you simply to enjoy your company, not to be impressed by 5-star dining. So in all of your efforts to provide hospitality, prioritize relationships. As you're evaluating things like your menu or your seating arrangements, keep those relationships in mind. Do the people that you're inviting over have some food intolerances or special dietary needs? If you are developing community, you will learn about those things and come to appreciate how best to serve others in your home. We host our home group usually once a month. We host with another family, and they'll host at their house one Saturday a month, and we host at our house one Saturday a month. And as we have developed this community, we've actually realized that there are several people in our group that have some very specific food requirements. And now, because we're in community, we value each other as friends and we want to be together and have that time of fellowship, we organize our menu around these food needs. And it's actually not that hard. It just means paying a little bit of attention and making some adaptations in ways that are simple and really affirm your desire to serve the individuals in your home. Now, the second element in this formula comes directly from Scripture, and that is to remember the reason you are providing hospitality to begin with. Matthew 25 verses 34 through 40 give us a good picture of the reason for us to provide hospitality. It says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.'" That's something to look forward to, isn't it? "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer to them, "Truly I say to you, as you did to one of the least of these brothers, you did to me." When we serve others in our home, we serve Jesus himself. We become a conduit for blessing others when we remember the reason for our hospitality. Jesus has been so hospitable with us. We have been given much more than we could ever deserve through the gospel, and we can extend hospitality out of a place of gratitude for what Jesus has done for us. Now, the last element in this formula is very practical. You know that we have got to get our heads right before we can actually put work in our hands. Here is the practical element of this formula. Keep it simple. I know. Use what you have. We host around 35 people, including kids, in our home at least once a month with our home group. We've also had lots of holidays here at our house, and I very rarely purchase anything special to make that happen. We pull in camp chairs. We have pulled in office chairs to squeeze in around this table. Now, we did rearrange this dining room because we have outgrown this table. I have a leaf, but the way that our dining room was set up, I just could not extend it all of the way. And so shifting things around a little is going to allow for us to extend our table and have even more seats for people to be able to use. But I'm not buying more chairs. I'm not trying to get all fancy with it. We're gonna pull some stools up. We're gonna pull chairs up because there's nothing more satisfying than all of us sitting shoulder to shoulder at the table, enjoying a meal and fellowshipping with one another. Along those same lines, find some core recipes that work for you. Do you need a good bundt cake recipe? I know where you can get one. Get like 3 or 4 recipes and use them over and over and over again. We repeat the same themes over and over again. So we may have Mexican one night and everybody brings a dish to pass, or we have soup and salad and we'll have 3 or 4 different soups that people have made and a couple of different salads. We have desserts, or we'll have breakfast for dinner sometimes. That has been a lot of fun. Keeping it simple when it comes to our recipes and our foods really helps alleviate some of the stress of spending all day in the kitchen leading up to a meal, only to be exhausted when your guests arrive and not actually being able to prioritize relationships with them. When we're super tired, we can't be helpful to anyone. Maybe though, you are a terrible cook. Well, guess what? You can order pizza. But extending hospitality in your home is not the only way to build community. Maybe you see someone sitting alone at church and you go and ask to sit next to them. Perhaps you make a little extra room at the table for someone that you know needs a seat. And the last element in this formula is to remember to give more than you take. And I understand this is difficult because we can find ourselves sometimes feeling like we are serving others and serving others and serving others, and perhaps there are not very many who are serving us. Now, it's not selfish to feel that way. In fact, part of what helps to cure our loneliness is the perception of what support may actually be available to us. And so if we feel like we're pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, and we don't feel like people are pouring back in, well, it can trigger us to feel a little lonely. This is yet another area where our faith can have a big impact on our outcomes. We may have to face the hard reality that we don't serve others so that we can be served. We serve others because of who we serve. As we extend friendship to others, we prioritize relationships, and we begin to build community, we may find that that community is actually available for us when we need it. But the other component is to ask for help when we need help. Our communities can't serve us if they don't know that we need things. Oh, are you coming to say hello to the friends, Gunnar? I know, we haven't seen them in a long time. It's okay. Click for the playlist right here if you want to find more ways that you can declutter and host as a minimalist. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.